Hello everybody and welcome to our channel, The Audio Couple. Today I'd like to talk actually about two topics which I think is very interdependent or interrelated. How can we start off the discussion today? I think to take me way back to when I was actually a small child of around 6 years old, between 5 and 6 years old. What actually got me to take up this hobby or pastime, or interest, some people will call it fanatics or to be a fanatic, it's basically the music. The music actually made me take up this hobby because I enjoyed the music so much, and the emotional content or the emotional impact that music has on a person, and so if I can take you way back to about 1975, 1976. Now I know this is a long time ago, but this is the first time that my dad actually, or when I became aware of music and what it's doing. And look at those years in South Africa, we didn't have television broadcast yet, so people got together to listen to music, especially on vinyl. People will come together in the evenings and then have a few snacks and maybe some drinks, and then enjoy music together. And this is what my dad did, and he was actually quite well known for actually his good recordings, or let's call it the good collection, vinyl collection that he has. Of course, those days we talked about LPs or long playing records. So my dad used to play this French singer. It's a male artist, Joe Desson, and there was a specific song which was called Le Moustique, which is about a mosquito, and so for me it was memorable for two reasons. The one is, of course, it's about the Le Moustique, or the mosquito, which if you're such a small child, you remember, you have a connection with the song, the name, and you know what the mosquito is doing. But the other part of it was also the way that the artist conveyed the content or the song. He had a very distinct voice, a very relaxed type of way that he actually conveyed the music, or how he actually sang in this recording. And then, of course, the actual overall recording, the vinyl, the quality from that record. Still today I've got it in my collection, and I've actually got it now streaming it as well, and that actually connects it to the second topic that I'd like to discuss. But anyway, like I stated, a very distinct voice, but coupled to a very decent recording, especially on vinyl and for those days. And I found myself numerous times walking towards the loudspeaker and listening actually intently to the voice of this person. And I remember actually that the voice didn't emanate just out of the loudspeaker. It was sort of an aura around the loudspeaker. And a lot of people that say that this is the difference between just normal hi-fi and high-end, is that actually when it's slightly more to the high-end or more musical sounding equipment, the audio is not actually just contained within the loudspeaker. It's actually a bit more of a diffuse sound in the whole room, and it's almost that you can't hear if the voice is coming from the tweeter or the mid-range unit or from the bass. It's just a overall, how can I say, it's almost like a message that's just conveyed, the full musical message that was conveyed. And that's how I found myself starting to be interested in audio. And then, of course, what I did then, after I went to the loudspeaker, I went to the actual needle or the cartridge, and I kept my ear close to it, and I heard. But there's actually the audio actually emanates from the cartridge, or from the vinyl, or from the long playing record, and then it's fed to some sort of a device, and then you get this amplified version of that same sound on the loudspeaker. And that got me interested in electronics. So thanks to that for my dad as well, that he instilled that in me to to really pursue really good sound reproduction. And the reason is it's just straightforward. It's actually what emotional impact that has on a person. But anyway, so that's taking me back quite a while. But it was really important for people to also understand, or our viewers, that it's not just because I have affinity for the hardware or the actual equipment. It's more what music is doing, and I've actually taken up the hobby for the music. And as I progress in my journey between different equipment, etc., getting to the audio nirvana, I keep coming back to the music, and which is it's good for me. So it's very important for all our listeners, or our community out there, our YouTube community, to remember that that's why we've taken up this hobby, is that we should enjoy the music. It shouldn't just be about that loudspeaker and this one and the combination and the cables and the interconnects and that amplifier with those loudspeakers. Of course, that's part of the journey, and that's part of what's making it exciting. But at the end of the day, you have to sit down and really enjoy the music and the content. So that's then to talk about more about the music aspect. So today I'm actually also talking to it's actually a friend, and he was a colleague of mine, Dirk Hugo from Cape Town. Thank you, Dirk, for posting that after the other our previous YouTube posting, and he actually asked Nimrod. He's quite, also into audio and reproduction, etc., and also was involved with live broadcasting and these type of things. So I think he's very attuned to the quality of different recordings. And he brought up an interesting question, and basically in a nutshell what he asked is to say, Nimrod, since I enjoy listening to music, then I experience an impact in the quality of recent recordings, remastered recordings of maybe older content, or what is my take on that? Do I experience improvement in sound quality nowadays compared to recordings that was done way back? So I gave him a bit of a generic feedback on Facebook, on one of the social media channels, let's call, because it is quite a difficult question in a sense, but maybe to take you back, or maybe to give some context to his question. Look, I think I know where it comes from, and I also think about it quite often, especially if I listen to music and you start, it's almost like you're dissecting some of the recordings. It just comes natural, if you enjoy music, etc. So it comes from the era where the recording studios will use those big Studer reel-to-reel analog recorders to actually capture the recording. That's the final stage of capturing the actual recording. Of course, before that it goes through a mixing desk, and there's a recording engineer, etc. And then maybe after that there's post-production. What I mean is there's maybe a mastering engineer involved, and he will ensure that the sound is then polished and then can be distributed in mass. So so it comes basically back to that. Is the older way of recording to analog, to the reel-to-reels, those elegant, I call it almost elegant, analog reel-to-reel recording devices, are they better to what we have these days with digital recording? It's all maybe to solid state hard drives that they actually record, and you've got all sorts of digital tools to I would say either improve the records or to make edits, to your recordings, etc. So I'm in two minds there, Dirk, and maybe to the community. Look, I think there's definitely very good analog recordings that originate from that period, the 70s, the 80s, and then in the 90s. I think even up to the early 2000s, a lot of recording studios use these analog reel-to-reels, and perhaps there's still a few today out there that still uses that because they just feel that it's better. And look, if it's better in their ears or in their minds, then it's better, and so you get very good recordings, that's done way back, and then also quite recent recordings in the digital domains that also is excellent. So I think it's really a combination of a lot of things to make a good recording or capture a good recording. Of course, first of all, look, you must be set up in a good studio. Of course, the artists contribute to that and the way it's actually structured and set up. Then how whole system is mic'd. There's a whole method behind how a drum, for instance, how a drum is actually mic'd. How many microphones you're actually using, what type of microphones, the distance to the drummer, the distance to the actual device, that type of thing, the number of microphones that you use and the different types that you combine to get a certain sound out of the drum. And then of course there's still factors like what type of drum, which drums, there's also certain makes have a distinct sound, etc, etc. So maybe to come back to it, the recording process is extremely complex, and there's a lot of variables, and it's almost like when all the planets in our solar system aligns, you actually capture that excellent recording, and then afterwards you still need to have good mastering engineer that is a master in his field to actually make excellent recording. So all of those things then contribute towards a good recording. And then of course finally is, how did you capture it? Did you capture it on those analog nice reel-to-reel recording devices, or did you capture it in the digital domain, or even just to maybe a CD standard quality, or maybe even higher, higher resolution, 24 bits. I know a few years back, 24 bits, 96 kilohertz was the de facto, and then as we progress it actually improves, etc, etc. So yes, so what I'm trying to say is, yes, you can take some of those older recordings and then remaster them again with all these newer digital capabilities that we have in these modern studios, and then actually improve the original recording, because it's almost like what you do with a picture. You add a filter to it and you actually enhance certain parts of the picture that makes the observer focus on certain content in the picture that just gives a better overall view or understanding of the picture, and it's conveyed in a better way. So this is the same with a mastering, or let's call it could also be the recording engineer that decides to change certain things in the original recording, which then actually contributes towards a better recording. And this is what I'm trying to say, is that look, sometimes the original recording can't really be improved because it was just captured in a very special, magical way. But then because of modern technologies, somebody can take that recording and then improve an older version of that, and then you've got to get a remastered version. But it's not always to say that the remastered version is better than the original, because of various factors and things like I've just mentioned. So maybe to then give it a I'd like to also give examples, because then people understand when you actually give examples. But there's too many actually to name here. But look, I've listened to a few recordings that was remastered that I felt, look, it's much better than the original one. But there's also a few that I had to listen to that said it's a modern version of the same song, or slightly altered or whatever, and I felt, no, the original one was much better, So, yes, it's not to say, it depends on a lot of things. In general, maybe we must then say in general, is it better these days? I think with the digital technologies, definitely. It's like we also realized with our high, let's call it 4K television sets or monitors these days. Look, the picture, the crisp, that razor sharpness that you can get from a digital picture these days, if you compare it to that old analog signals, and I mean your state-of-the-art analog signals. I don't know if you guys remember the old Sony profile monitors, those broadcast quality monitors that they had. That was a state-of-the-art analog reproduction monitor that people in the broadcast industry used, and that was the de facto standard. Of course, there was Panasonic and a few others as well that produced excellent analog monitors that had a very precise image and color reproduction. But if you really compared it to today's this high-end OLED or latest technology 4K devices, we realize, look, they did improve things along the way. And I think that's true with audio as well. There's now just this capability to almost do bit level alterations to audio, which gives you that versatility. So what are the message that I'd like to bring related to recordings is to say that because there's so many and there are many versions of songs and so on, I would say do the same that I do. If it's a good recording, I save it to my preferred list or a listening list, and I concentrate on the best version of that song. Now and then, just for interest, I would play the older version and listen to it and compare it, in my mind, let's say, with each other. But then I say, okay, I still prefer the newer version, and I play that, etc., etc. So the message that I want to bring is, look, guys, if once a recording is captured, there's not really much that we can do in our reproduction systems to alter that original recording. So I make amends to that. So basically, I make peace with it. If the recording is as such, I can't do much to change it. But what I can change, or the impact that I can have, is to ensure that that original recording is as vibrant and as well reproduced as it could be through my system, to make sure that I have decent front end, a source component. I have decent interconnects. I have a decent preamp, a decent power amplifier, and then of course a very important part is the loudspeakers, and of course then the loudspeaker cabling, etc. So there's where we come in, in our hobby, is that yes, we are definitely dependent on the source material and how good it was captured, but we can't really change much about it. Once it's captured, it's captured. Ensure that the essence of the recording is still reproduced in our own listening space, or even if you are so fortunate to have a dedicated listening room, in that auditioning or listening room. So yes, and so this is the other part then. What I wanted to discuss is, guys, there's so many views out there to say, but I prefer CD. CD is much better. I don't like streaming because X, Y, and Z, because I still get that, I don't know, let's say, authentic type of presentation from the CD. Yes, of course. I'm also in that same mind, but I'm open to other mediums, because I won't tell you, guys, just listen to your CD player or just listen to vinyl. I listen to both. I've got 2 record players. I've got actually 2 phono stages, whatever. I've got also different sources combinations, because I remember when I grew up in the heydays of hi-fi, or we can also call it high-end. Remember, your dad and my dad had multiple sources for audio. For instance, he had the FM tuner. Maybe it was mono in the first, in the early days. Then it became stereo. But that was a source, FM broadcast. Then he also used the vinyl, your record player, your turntable to as another source. We then did recordings to either your reel-to-reel, commercial reel-to-reel recording devices, and then of course your normal cassette. Remember your compact cassette tape decks. And then later CD came, and they used all of it. My dad played CDs sometimes. Other occurrences, he'll put a tape on, and especially when there's a car, he'll either play a tape, compact cassette, or he'll play a CD. And they, of course, there was a preferred medium, but in general, they enjoyed all of them. And this is the message that I also want to give to everybody out there, to say, guys, enjoy your CDs. If you're a CD guy, enjoy it, but be open to streaming. Because what I realized with streaming is, if you look at the top 3, and I call it from my perspective, the top 3 streaming platforms is of course Tidal, Spotify, and now look, there's a few others as well, but the one that I also enjoy now is Google Play Music, but now it's been incorporated into YouTube Music, and each one is almost like a different cartridge that you'll put on your turntable. The Tidal will be the full cartridge. That's a Rolls Royce of the cartridges that you engage. It could also be the Bentley cartridge that you engage. Tidal's got a very full sound for me, very I would say also natural reproduction, and depending on your front end or your DAC, etc., you can actually get very good results, excellent results, from Tidal, and that for me at the moment is my go-to medium. I've got a lot of CDs as well, and I play CDs as well every now and then, but then the second best to that then will be is to actually go to JRiver and then also listen to a lot of the content that I have on my hard disk, because I decided to digitize a lot of my CDs onto my hard drive, and every now and then I'll also play my CD collection that I have, but through JRiver, and sort of that's also then, let's call it sort of an internal streaming setup, but with very good results. Very highly rated from my side. And then maybe a second to that will be Spotify. So Spotify I also enjoy. It's got a very typical sound that I like. It's a bit more in your face, and that's nice. That's almost to put the sports car cartridge on there, on your turntable. It could be the Benz, these type of cartridges. I think you guys will know what I mean. And that you also enjoy, and you enjoy the content on there, and you have in the right frame of mind, and you enjoy that content. And then finally, I can also play my YouTube content, but because YouTube is quite elaborate, and sometimes I can decide to view audio video experience or just a video experience, and a lot of good recordings there as well. And I must say, what I've realized from YouTube is that a lot of the recent recordings is actually very well done on YouTube. And I enjoy it, and so on. But to summarize, is to say, guys, okay, first of all, yes, recordings, they differ, but I think we must actually variety is the spice of life. A lot of people say that, and I think it's the same in the recordings. Enjoy those recordings that sounds different, and enjoys those recordings that is done excellent, and sounds excellent over your system. All of the total mix brings together the total experience. So that's what I want to like to say, is that yes, there's better and there's not such good recordings, but in general, I think that most is very specifically to enjoy. Set up to enjoy the actual content, and is done fairly well. I mean, a recording, I think, is quite a process, to set up everything and get it right. But then again, that's basically it. I can't go on and on about this subject. But anyway, so enjoy the content, and there's a variety, and you get better and not so good recordings, but just enjoy them. And then finally, to the other part where the people will say, oh, but I only listen, now I know why I only listen to CDs, or now I know why I only prefer vinyl. Yes, no, your point taken, but I think we shouldn't be that pedantic. I think, now and then put on your streaming, or be open to it at least, and listen to it for yourself if you enjoy the streaming or not, and then play a vinyl and see if you're happy with it or not. And this is what I do, is if I get bored now and then, I activate the turntable, and then I play around with a few cartridges, and I play a few records, but in general I try to actually enjoy the music, and I think that's what it should be too, and the different sources. And sometimes it's just that that source with that type of music sounds the best, and this is what I do. But that's it. I think maybe we can move over to the next section with Teresa joining me as well. And welcome to Teresa. Hello Teresa, welcome. Okay, so today, we had this topics that I wanted to discuss. I thought about it for quite some while, because it is actually very important topics. This is key to a lot of forums and people discussions, and it's actually good to discuss it. It makes such a good discussion topic, because it is so important, and there's a lot of variety of opinions regarding these things, which is valid. I mean, each one's opinion regarding this is important, and it can help you to explore and to improve, let's say, more, or understand recordings. It's also important that if you really go into the recordings, you can actually get a lot of information. Who was the recording engineer? Who was the mastering engineer? In which studios was it actually recorded? What time of the year? So all these things maybe play a part as to why there's a certain sound that you could capture. And it's the impact of people. I mean, of course, the artists, the recording engineers, the people that set up the actual recording studio, the actual build quality of the studio, the setup, the audio environment, how it was mic'd. I spoke about that a bit. So it's a complex topic, and there's lots of variables. But I don't know, what do you think about it?
Because sometimes at night when we listen to music, and you had a stressful day, the music sounds stress, or yes, and sometimes if you more relax and we listen to music, it's more like, wow, you can enjoy the music. You listen every musical instrument. You can hear everything.
Yeah,
well, not
sure.
really hear everything, but it's not, you can enjoy it.
Yes, for sure. No. So no, I agree. I think that we also have it, and some of my friends actually think it's very funny. But I tell them that we actually have a cable, interconnect cable between the preamp and the power amps. That is our weekend cable, and we have one in the week. So the week cable is a bit more fuller in sound and lush and whatever, and we play that in the week because normally in the week periods, when you work, you are a bit more stressed, and I think tired in the evenings. You had a full day, a lot of things happening. So then we prefer to actually put the more rounder, let's call it reproduction cable in use. And a lot of people say, but yes, is it that fine? Is it really that, But yes, we do perceive that the one cable, and it's actually from the same manufacturer, that it's a bit more full, and you can actually, if you highly stressed, this actually gets you to enjoy the content slightly more. And then we have another cable that's much more accurate in my view, still full but much more accurate in the sound reproduction, and it's almost like the sound is a bit more edged, not as round as the other cable. And then and this is nice when you're much more in a relaxed state and you need that more edginess or edge, that defined edges in the music. Of course, I'm doing a square wave, but it's actually most of these are, of course, sinus waves. But anyway, yeah, so I agree. So what Teresa's trying to say as well is certain recordings in the week can actually sound stressed in a way. But it's just the way that it was captured, maybe, so there's not really much you can do afterwards or whatever. It's just the way the recording was captured. But yes, we can maybe then decide, so in the state of mind that you're in to listen to the music also impacts the actual experience that you have. So there we can again see that it's a complex topic, but a good topic to discuss. But you guys are welcome to add your comments as well to the video as well, and it will be good to also get your experience. But I think we already we talked a lot about this topic. I don't think there's anything else. So just to capture again, we spoke about different mediums of sound, how you can actually enjoy content, recordings, etc. We also spoke about the recording process, and if newer recordings that were remastered is better than older recordings. In some instances yes, and others not. Of course, maybe it will always be better to give some examples, but there's so many that are, I don't want to really go into details. But what last thing I can also tell you guys is that even with, as I've improved my playback system over the years, if I go back to old recordings that I tried to sidestep, that I didn't really want to listen to again because of the quality of the recording, every now and then one will come up and I think, let me just listen if that recording is still as bad as it used to be. And because I actually have a better playback system and it's much more accurate, or let's call it dynamic, if I play back some of that older content, I actually hear new things in the recording, which for me is really mind-boggling. And then I actually realized that actually recording wasn't that bad. Maybe it was just the way that it was played back, etc. So I don't really think there's very bad recordings. There's recordings that
it's different.
It's different. Yeah, it's different. It's like a lot of things like that. So I think that's basically what I wanted to say, discuss with you guys today. Maybe in some upcoming videos we'll actually talk about other exciting new audio products, but I'm also going to dedicate a few. I will have a part 1 and maybe a part 2 regarding my new loudspeakers, the M2s, the JBL M2s, which I acquired recently, but it was also quite a journey to get them to my, to integrate well into my system and in my listening environment. But it's an interesting journey. Maybe that I don't think that journey is over yet, but I'm at a place where where the actual sound resonates with me, if I can say that, where it starts to actually make music. And it sounds funny, but look, it's quite a delicate loudspeaker in a sense, is that it's like an instrument. It's an instrument, so you have to how can I say, play with the settings and the actual setup to actually get the most out of the loudspeaker, because it actually is capable of extreme dynamics. It's capable of a full sound, etc. I know now we're going into maybe a next topic. So I hear I get the vibes from Teresa. Guys, let's rather keep that content for the next video, but yes, I think it will be a very interesting one. The first part will be a bit more general discussion just from people, and then part 2 will be a lot more technical, and this is the type of videos that I'd also like to make in future, is to also satisfy a bit more of the technical community out there that really wants to deep dive into some aspects. And I think the JBL M2 is one of those loudspeakers that you can actually do a deep dive on, because there's lots of aspects that one have to consider. But this is us then, guys, Nimrod and Teresa, the audio couple. We appreciate you actually enjoying our content, and if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more of our videos, please subscribe, and if you want to get notifications, hit the bell. But that's us then, guys. Nimrod and Teresa, the audio couple, signing off. Cheers.